everyone to another Startup Tuesday. I thank you for stopping by and joining us. Our hopes in these lives is to share as much knowledge and valuable information to our audience that might help someone in the future that is thinking of joining or coming into the multifamily space. So, my name is ThatKimberly, and my usual cohort, I should say co-host, Deborah, won't be joining us today. She'll be back next week. But our guest, he'll wave here shortly or tell us who he is. Jeff will be sharing the conversation with me around how to keep your customers happy once you have them. Because we all know how difficult that can be if you don't keep your customers happy. They don't come back. So before we jump into that, I want everyone to know that we are live on the Meta, aka Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. So wherever you're watching from, make sure that if you would like to ask us a question, subscribe so you get the notifications for our next Tuesday live. And I think that's everything. And let's jump into it. Jeff, please. Drum roll. I wish I had a little drum roll here. But Jeff Duerstock, please introduce yourself.
Well, it's always good to see you, Kimberly. And yes, I think you followed the script if I memorized it correctly. So, but yeah, no, I'm happy to be here. It's good to always join conversations with you. But I'm Jeff Duerstock, based in Dallas, Texas. I've been in the multifamily industry since 2006, and spent the majority of that in the energy space, serving the energy needs of our industry, largely in Texas. And then I have moved over to a couple of startups, really largely focusing on some marketing innovations. I'm also heavily involved in apartment associations. For anyone that knows me, I've been involved in local, state, and national levels, largely volunteering time to serve our industry needs, and been an advocate my entire career. I always enjoy, especially when we go to DC or Austin, to really kind of advocate for our industry with our state leaders. So I also currently at Spruce, we're an amenity service provider focusing largely on housekeeping, pet care, and laundry and other chores. So really excited, again, like I said, to be here today and kind of have this conversation about keeping customers happy.
Well, we appreciate you. We know that your knowledge is, you have a lot of it from just being around in the industry and from all your, involvement. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And Brian says, hello. Thank you, Brian Crawford, for stopping by. Yes, Jeff is
Hey, our friend Brian.
And thank you.
All his recent travels.
Oh, yes, definitely. Keeping up with him on the Insta. And Laura, thank you. Yes. Thank you for joining us as well. So let's see. What would you say that startups should be thinking about when it comes to keeping their customers happy?
Well, I mean, there's lots of ways, and I think as we kind of go through this conversation today, there's hopefully some themes that will help some individuals if this is an area that's been a focus, or but I certainly want to start with like making customers feel important, and there's so many ways you can do that. I mean, just you and I talking today, like using our first names, that is an easy way to get a customer's attention or make them feel important.
Yes.
But even beyond then, like just getting to know them, we obviously talk a lot about building rapport, asking about their families, their passion, how long they've been in their organizations. But it even because we can't talk to every customer we have every single day, and so I think obviously all of us through this special time that we're in have utilized social media. I mean, you and I have never been on a live like this prior to the pandemic, but utilizing that social media, spending 30 minutes to an hour during the day, and either recognizing accomplishments or other areas that their organization may be putting out there is a
Yeah.
great way to make them feel important.
Yeah, LinkedIn is definitely, I feel, still a spot for multifamily that they're just now understanding that is a place that they're at, and it's a place that they can, tout on themselves and their companies and the community that they, volunteer work, anything that they do. It's a place that people are putting that information out
Right.
there. So, connecting with others on LinkedIn first, and if you're so lucky to be connected with them on the Facebook, as I like to call it, whichever, definitely learning about them and, congratulating, like you said, is a great way
Yeah.
and connecting, right? Like if they were in need, of something, you and I, when we were chatting a little bit earlier, you had a good point and you're always a great resource for people as well, that when people are looking for someone or they're looking for another service that might not be yours, that you can make a recommendation and help them, right?
Right. Yeah. I
It's
mean,
so
there's
important.
obviously another conversation. There's pros and cons to social media, but certainly
Yeah.
highlighting the pros is, we can keep up with everybody,
Yeah.
in a way, which then when we do get that valuable FaceTime, we can kind of just elaborate on the conversation and be that connector. And yeah, just again, it goes back to making them feel important.
Yeah, 100%. Would you say that there are any pros and cons of having a customer service team, if you will?
I mean, there certainly can be both sides, right?
Because you came from both worlds, right? You came from
Right.
corporate America to startup world.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's your organizational structure is important. First and foremost, customer service teams are, almost a necessity. And, I think the large part for a customer or from a client's perspective is, I would say, speed, right? You know, w- we we no one company is built on one individual. And
Hmm.
so being able to have
Very
a
true.
team to support individual clients' needs, certainly allows for that speed, which when clients need something, it's always good to respond. And so,
Yes,
um,
quickly.
right. And, for, again, depending on how your organization's structured, at our organization, there's two of us that are national, and, we may be traveling, we may be tied up in
Mhm.
other client conversations. And so, it's not always easy to immediately respond to that. So having a
Yeah,
customer service, type organization or a client success team is really important to help facilitate that at all levels for the client, right?
yeah, 100%.
Um, but
Even
with
if it's even if it's just one person, right? Even if it's the one salesperson, like in a startup world, you start one salesperson, start with one, client success person, I found
right.
was definitely made a difference, and then go from there. But go ahead.
Well,
I'm sorry.
oh, no, no. I mean, that's a good point, but that's where I was going to share that, if you have multiple people involved, it can somewhat get difficult to have a consistent message or to
Yeah.
keep promises.
Hmm.
Um, because that level of communication, especially in a startup world, many of us and most startups, like there's a lot of remote work.
Yeah.
Um, and as much as we have all these tools to communicate, it's almost like we've been talking internally that like our Slack channels are a little like we need to kind of hit a reset button, because we built some based on need, and now it's kind of we're confusing our own organization of where do we put this information.
Uh-huh.
It's not that we don't want to help the customer, it's just communicating in a fashion, especially as your organization hopefully grows, like having that structure in place just to make sure that you keep those promises is really important, to not only follow up quickly but do what you say you're going to do.
Absolutely. And that's a good point for startups to be thinking about, not in the moment, but think of your macro, the bigger picture, right? And then maybe work your way down so that way you can have those individual needs met, for your customers, and still grow where it's not really that big a deal. Maybe you just retire a Slack channel. That's what we had to go back and do is clean up the Slack channels and retire some, and then maybe if there were a few things that were still important, we put them into a category that was mutual, if you will, right? That could compass all. So yeah,
it needs to be flexible, right? Because
yes,
there may
100%.
be, there may be a need today that's not a need tomorrow, but and so it's not saying that there's one single answer to that solution, but being able to have a foundation that is set up for success, but also flexible to those needs, because they're certainly going to change, as the market evolves, the industry evolves. And so, being able to look forward, but also not be afraid to look back, meaning, did this work and do we need to modify it?
Yeah, absolutely. And asking also, as you get happy customers, asking them to share their opinions, right? Or what they feel can make your product or service better. And keeping those things in mind.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of involving customers.
Yes.
And obviously this is not a new concept, right? I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be a part of a lot of education, or, bringing in lots of business consultants. And, I always remember the success of Domino's, that, I mean, after they got all this feedback from their customers about, where their opportunity was in their business, they then gave free pizzas back to every single one of those customers to try that new experience.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so cool. And, I think us as an industry, obviously you want to make sure it's valuable for a customer's time, because we all know, they don't have unlimited time. But if you can involve them, to ask questions and help kind of design or direct some of the strategy and direction that you're going, I think you're going to see better success, because they're bought into that.
Yeah, absolutely. The more you involve them, the more you will keep them happy, right? As well as your product or service can evolve and you can learn from, right? Where at the end of the day, if you're not flexible when you're a startup and you can't evolve, you're gonna die. It's gonna die, whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
Well, and it touches on so many points, right? It makes sure it's validation that you're doing the right thing, or you're potentially going down a path that could yield some results, but it also keeps the customers engaged, right? You don't want to establish a relationship and then just move on to the next relationship. And that long-term engagement is what establishes partnerships. And we know in this business, partnerships is that's what we're here for. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Valuable. 100%.
It's not just about being able to prove out concept of your product. This is a two-way street. And the fact that, you're building a solution to help solve a problem or a need for our customers, but ultimately you're supporting their business at being better, whether it's for, the operations of the property, or for the resident experience, or, whichever direction, your solution may benefit. But at the end of the day, it's all about partnerships.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. How did you, when you were able to, start hiring a customer service team, how did you start building that team? What did you keep in mind, to keep your customers happy?
Well, so one, hiring is always interesting, right? It's either depending what the role you have is, what market you're hiring in. Us as leaders, it's always a delicate balance. But I've also, I've not solely focused in one particular area when it comes to industry knowledge, right? It really comes down to that individual, their drive, their energy, as well as, just their ultimate skill set. But, especially in the startup world, even if that individual doesn't have industry knowledge, it's really important that you spend time on the front end bringing them up to speed, because our customers' time is valuable. We've already said that in this conversation. And so being able to have your team speak knowledgeable of not only about your product, but the industry that we serve, it builds a stronger trust factor with our clients and our customers, and ultimately makes them happy because they can trust us, right?
Yeah.
So, I would certainly say that has always been a major focus of mine, and I've seen it within, my peers and colleagues in other organizations. But it's definitely something that you don't want to lose sight of in terms of your team is knowledgeable.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're not into it, if they're not into keeping your clients happy, fire quickly. You definitely don't be scared to to fire. It's definitely was something I wish we would have done quicker, just because we wanted to give everybody the benefit
Yeah,
of the doubt.
I don't really like that word, if I was being honest with you, but at the
Okay,
end of the day, it's important to recognize if it's not a right fit. And,
correct,
that doesn't make that, like, fire to me seems really negative. And that doesn't mean that they're just maybe not the right role for them.
correct.
And,
It wasn't a win-win for both the person and the organization.
right. And well, in a startup world, there could be a lot of creative opportunities, right? Like, you're
Hmm.
trying to, whether it's serve your customers or build your brand, or, there's so many things that we're focused on because it's also new. There may be just a better fit for them. Like, if their skill set, you hired them for a reason.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and so maybe it was just the unknown, but ultimately it's having a conversation so that way, it's supporting them as an individual.
yeah. Did you, when you hired, I know this is kind of a right hook, but this was something that we got better at later, is talking to our clients about a certain individual that we might be considering hiring, and getting their feedback. Did you ever do that? And was that ever beneficial for you?
I would say I've done that with at least two individuals, and I
Okay.
wish I would have done it with more. So I think
Oh,
the
okay.
point is very valid. It's one of those items, and if some of my colleagues, if they listen to this, they know exactly who they are, because I've had some very direct conversations, and they're like, "Jeff, why didn't you call me?" And I'm like, "We're all so busy. I didn't want to, like, interrupt your
Yeah,
day." And
yeah.
but at the same time, it could have helped save, time long term, right? In
Hmm.
terms of making sure you're hiring the right individuals. And so I've certainly tried to do a better job of that, as well
Hmm.
as, we talked about being a connector. This industry is a family, and, it's been, I've always tried to be a connector in that sense of, if there's someone looking for an opportunity, or, they put their name out there, and then, I hear of opportunities.
Yeah,
It certainly helps every organization grow.
yeah. And I feel that when you do ask your clients their opinion, even on your customer service, they will definitely be able to give you that real insight on, to make sure that the person is that true fit, because it can be,
Right.
like you said, there's different opportunities. I remember one time when somebody asked me about hiring a certain individual, and they were a startup. I just explained to them, I said, hey, look, this person is used to having a huge budget, right? And this person is used to whining and dining, and keeping clients happy. And this person does a great job of it. But you just need to have that conversation with this person. She's a she. And it was actually for two different individuals, and let them know that there's going to be a budget. It's not unlimited,
Right.
because they both came from a corporate world that had huge budgets, like you in the past, right?
Yeah.
Being able to but when you're with the startup, you got to get more creative on and more personable on things to do for your clients,
No, it's it's there's a clear difference there. I mean,
yeah.
I don't think we have to educate anyone, and being on both sides of that. It's been a journey, I guess, is the easiest way. I mean, at times everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, you live the best life," and I'm like, "Well, the reality, like, it gets old really fast. Let me tell you." Not the actual being with clients part, but just the going, and I mean, because it's all after hours or weekends or
Yeah,
whatever. And it certainly can be enjoyable at first, but it can be taxing after a while. But
yeah.
flipping that into kind of what you were saying is, yeah, moving to the startup, you really have to kind of go back to some of your core roots, and think about, like what has really helped you build relationships with your customers and really kind of maximize in other areas, in terms of responsiveness and, knowledge and, being passionate about your product and making sure that it's solving real needs.
Mhm.
And then ultimately just treating folks as individuals.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, it's really important to make sure that you address those needs and communicate with them. So
Yeah. I 100% agree. Everybody's different, no apartment community, no management company is the same, and no person is the same. And so if we
I
treat
love that you said that, because
Mhm.
it's
It
this, you need a scalable solution, but it can't be one size fits all.
absolutely 100%. Um, Before I ask my funny question, do you have any other like insider advice for startups that, or new companies that are coming into multifamily? Because, we say Startup Tuesday, but this was also meant for companies that are very successful in other industries, and they want to somehow, apply their service or product for multifamily, and not doesn't always happen the way people think it, quickly. We made it in the automobile industry. We can make it anywhere.
Yeah.
I've met a couple companies that had a little bit of hiccups to getting going.
Yeah.
So is there any other advice or insight you would give?
I would say this, keep it simple. I mean, in a startup world, you could probably go so many different directions. And, we talk about involving your customers and listening and,
Mhm.
solving needs. Well, there's a lot of it out there, and you can start to probably go too many directions. And then ultimately you're going to find you don't execute really well. And then no one's
Yeah,
happy, right? Like your
correct.
organization is maybe not succeeding, or your clients aren't happy because, there's too much going on. And
Mhm.
so I would certainly encourage to keep it simple. You're going to get a lot of asks, but like really think about like what's your core business, and ultimately it may fit into your strategy someday, but don't be afraid to say no, and really focus on what you started to do to
Mhm.
really build a solid foundation before you start kind of
Going all of before you
expanding, going different directions.
Yeah.
Because I think we all, if you're joining from our specific industry, I think we all know of some examples where that has happened.
Mhm.
And I think we all can learn from that in terms of
Yeah.
just really sticking to what you're really good at. Yes, there's strength in being able to be a
Jack of all
solution.
trades.
Yeah, like being a solution that solves a lot of problems, like there's strengths to that. But as we know, operationally, that's not
Mhm.
always functional, and because it's tough to execute. Like this
Yeah.
business it's amazing and it pays so many dividends, but there's so many moving pieces that's why we need so many different products and services to solve various needs, because it's not an easy business. But
Absolutely.
keep it simple.
Yeah. And stick to your guns when you're keeping it simple. Like if you're new, it might take a little bit, longer than you anticipate, and it's okay. For us, it took us, I always say, 3 years to sell our first video product. And in between, people are asking us to do websites and logos and all this other stuff that we're like, no, we do this. We do this really, really
Right.
well,
Right.
this, and as tough as it was, you know, to stick to that, we did it, and in the end it was beneficial. But you definitely don't want to get too shiny penny off the
Yeah.
path too early. Like maybe later, note that down, but
Yeah, that's a
for sure.
great summary. That yeah, there could be a time and a place, but
Hmm.
be sure
But
that you
keep
stay
it
focused.
simple in the beginning. Brian says, great wisdom, Jeff.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We
Brian.
love Brian.
Yes. Thank you, April Chapman, for joining us.
Hey,
And
April.
this person is probably connected to you, but they say hello because it's not coming up. I don't know. StreamYard, they change some things and don't.
Well, we
I'm
appreciate all of you
Yeah.
joining.
So, I have to ask, what is the funniest story or the funniest thing you've ever done to keep your customer happy? Is there a
Oh my.
You don't have to name names.
I know, right? This may not be the best story, but it always makes me laugh.
Okay.
We were going through a billing platform change, one, to ultimately better serve customers, right? Like at
Yeah,
times you have to reinvent your business or your back end systems, and that's all part
absolutely.
of growth. And we had a lot of challenges. One, it comes down to execution, right? And so,
Yes.
you know, make sure you do all that homework on the front end. But interesting enough, we had some clients being billed in pesos versus US dollars. And it was not an easy fix. Obviously, from my world, I'm just asking questions of why. Like, why is this happening? Why can't we fix it? And it became comical between me and this long-term client because she had stated, I'm going to start paying you in pesos if you don't fix this. And so I used that internally to be like, look, if we can't figure this out, we're gonna have to figure out how to accept this currency. So well, ultimately we got it fixed, and I can tell you, I share with everyone, like, be a good internal partner and external partner.
Hmm.
I mean, especially no matter the size of your organization, being able to respond to your operations team's needs, being thorough in your request, will help you get solutions for your customers in a time of need. And so, that we were able to get that resolved. Like it wasn't, that unique in terms of, other than just escalating the issue and
Yeah.
using humor and the fact that we were billing in pesos to help solve that issue. So,
Oh, the things that happen. It was, I don't know
yeah.
if that was a technology thing, but sometimes it definitely can make you laugh, right?
Yeah, I always, it's so funny. So many of us in this industry talk about having like a reality show or writing a book about the things that have happened both on the supplier side as well as the
Mm,
operations side, but
yeah.
that hasn't come to fruition. I'm just waiting for that day.
Yeah. I don't, I have talked to a couple people. They say it would have to be remain anonymous. Everybody, even a ghostwriter would have to be,
Right.
employed because some of the stories are, you know, I don't know, maybe the older we get, we'll care less. I mean, I don't care, but I know some of the stories that I would tell of people they might. So
Right. Right.
we'd have to protect a lot of names and there'd have to be a ghostwriter involved. So for sure. Um, but and Beth Van Winkle says, "Funny story. Thank you, Beth.
Hey,
We
Beth.
appreciate you. We think I thought it was funny too. So
Yes. I couldn't even imagine getting a
I
bill and
could.
pay.
Well, it's better than not billing and then having to send an invoice at the end of the year
Yeah.
because because I know that happened to us. Luckily, the clients we caught it within the same year, but that does suck. So
Well, and
yes,
pesos look so much worse, right? Like if you didn't actually know the conversion factor, I mean, you're
yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's funny. So with that, tell folks a little bit more about Spruce and how they can connect with you. Yeah, if they want to learn more.
Good. Yeah, no, I mean, we're on track, or we are the largest amenity provider in this space. We're keeping it really easy in terms of being a service-based amenity for apartments, but ultimately, being there for residents in a time of need. I mean, modern day conveniences have exploded, especially during this time. And
Yes.
we want it to be really easy to find a housekeeper or a dog walker, or ultimately just do some of those small chores. I mean, there's work from home is still very real in our
Yeah.
industry. And we have so many residents that don't want to be in their same four walls when it comes time to cleaning their bathroom or doing their dishes. So
Yes.
we want to make that process really easy for residents, and provide amenity for owner operators that are really trying to differentiate their community. And we're growing. I mean, we're now in 17 markets, and we're going to go roughly 8 more this year. And
Wow.
so it's been successful. We're having a lot of fun, and it's going really well. And yeah, no, I'd love to have conversations with anyone, through LinkedIn, or I think Kimberly, you can put up my email
Well, I
address.
wanted to put first that Beth says that we love Spruce because
Beth, we love
um,
you.
I think that's pretty awesome. Yes, but you can connect with Jeff on LinkedIn or email him or go to and if you want to learn more about the services, which I wish my apartment community had them as well. Um, and I know that
And for the record, we do not do homes yet. I'm just going to go ahead and put that
say
out there. It's in that roadmap, but we talked earlier. You got to keep it simple,
yeah.
and multifamily is our lane, and we are
Yeah.
certainly exploring ways that we can grow in the future. So
Yeah, that it definitely makes sense to not go all over the place. Hold on to see, I have a reminder. Look, we're almost right on time. Alexa, dismiss.
you just turned on my Alexa.
Sorry. Anybody's Alexa just went off, right?
Well, Kimberly, it was
Yes.
great chatting with you,
Thank
and
you
I love
so
that
much.
you do this. I think it's so awesome, and it's always powerful to share knowledge with others, and I'm
Yes.
happy to have this conversation with you.
Well, we appreciate you for coming on and sharing your knowledge and being open to giving your insights and stories, because that's how we all keep learning and moving forward. So I appreciate you so much.
Of course.
And for everyone else, make sure that if you have a question, leave it, tag Jeff or myself so we can get to it and answer if you watch this on the replay. If you are watching it on the replay, put in where you watched it from. That would be awesome, and we would really appreciate that. Like I said, next week, Deb will be back, and we will actually have our topic will be about finding investment, which Jeff could have easily spoke about, but whether to go private or venture capitalist, lane. And that will be a topic we talk about with John Hinckley. So, everyone who joined us today, come back next Tuesday. Thank you, April. We appreciate you so much. And until next week, remember, sharing is caring, and have a great week, everyone. Thanks, Jeff.
Appreciate it.